And welcome back, young ladies. Welcome back from your mission camp. It must be exciting to go out as a group together. And I really hope and look forward to you sharing what you have done so far and how, whether you've been changed, whether you've got something new perspective that you've got, and so on. It's really good to share with people about what you have learned, okay? Today is my attempt to give a capstone to this topic called B.A. San Leandro. You know, this B.A. San Leandro is designed by Pastor Gideon because very soon we'll be changing our sermon title topics to synchronize with the other campuses of Crosspoint. And so this would be most probably the last one on B.A. San Leandro. So that's why I'm saying that I want it to be capstone. Now, you are familiar with these signs, right? I love hiking. When I first visited the Bay Area about 10 years ago, I always think these are bluffing, these signs. Because they got signs saying that you have to be careful of rattlesnakes, spiders, what else? Some poisonous insects, whatever. Before the trail. I live quite near this Dry Creek Regional Park. I wonder if you are aware of this. The Dry Creek Regional Park along the Mission Boulevard, okay, over that side. And about 5 years ago, I went with a friend along the Dry Creek Regional Park, trying to go down to those woody areas because they have got ridges and valleys and so on. So I love walking there, hiking there, and I went there with a friend. And as we enter those trails, a group of people, about 5 people or so, came from the opposite direction, and they told us that don't go. They are mountain lions. And then they say one more word. They are pups. Mountain lion pups. So usually, I think it was around noon at that time, or shortly afternoon, in the afternoon, early afternoon, mountain lions would not be active, as I know, okay? But then, because, with the mountain lion pups, they'll be extra careful and they might be aggressive because they need to be protective for their pups. So I know this is something for real, okay? And of course, when you look at the news, early this year, do you notice this? In San Francisco downtown, in the San Francisco urban area, and we see the mountain lion being spotted, and they were later tranquilized and got back to the wild. Okay, and I kept on searching for mountain lions in the Bay Area, and I found that in Hayward, this is in Hayward, very close to San Leandro. And you also see mountain lions, in the middle of the night. They usually come up in the middle of the night, but then they are captured by these monitors. And so, I'm just saying that mountain lions are real. So, when Pastor Gideon used this B.A. San Leandro as a title topic for a theme for our recent sermons, I'm just thinking, how can I be a San Leandro? One who is a saint, okay? We are saints, set apart for God. And then we have this heart of a lion and the body of a man. I'm thinking that Pastor Gideon is being too idealistic, okay? How can we aspire to be a San Leandro? And then I'm just thinking about the Bible. Where in the Bible, is something close to San Leandro? Then I found that actually in Ezekiel 1, as well as in Revelation 4, you can see that in heaven, the description is that there's some beings. And these are angelic beings, actually. And in Ezekiel 1, it says that the being has got 4 faces or 4 heads. Okay, or 1 head with 4 faces, to be exact. 1 head with 4 faces. And then there's a face of a man, an ox, a lion, and an eagle. So this is cherubim. Cherubim is an angel. And this whole concept of these 4 living creatures, I don't know how they look actually, you know. We never will know until we go up to into heaven. But it's just some description that we can vaguely see that there are some saintly or angelic beings with wings like that. And as a result, early church fathers, actually as early as the 2nd century, Irenaeus, had already tried to use these 4 creatures, 4-headed creatures, to describe the 4 Gospels. And it's up to the 5th century St. Jerome. He specifically lined it with the 4, the man, I mean the winged man with St. Matthew, winged lion with St. Mark, winged ox with St. Luke, and the rising eagle with St. John. And so, St. Mark is the winged lion. St. Mark is the San Leandro. Okay? I mean, as far as I can read from the Bible, I mean, or early church tradition, I mean, I can't say that I can be a San Leandro. I mean, it's something too lofty for me. But I'm thinking this is possible. And so that's why in these classical pictures, you can see Saint Mark, Marcus, and see these the classical pictures in the West depicting the 4 Gospels in 4 different creatures. So today, the sermon of my topic is Mark the San Leandro. Saint Mark the San Leandro. I'll talk about Mark. Okay. Now, these are the pictures. If you go to Google, you'll find a lot of some similar pictures of Mark. I mean, they depict Saint Mark together with a winged lion. Okay. Now, so first of all, when was Mark mentioned? It was in Acts 12. We knew that after Paul's escape from prison, not escape, but Paul was released by an angel from prison. He was in prison, but then he was released by an angel, and then he went to a place of prayer, and the place was owned by Mary. And then it's mentioned that Mary is the mother of John, who was called Mark. So let's dig into the background of Mark. Okay, the making of a San Leandro, how he was made. Now, first of all, we know that Mark was from a well-to-do family. If you are not well-to-do, your house will not be big enough to hold a prayer meeting. I can't hold a prayer meeting in my house, okay? So you know that it must be pretty big. I mean, it's those well-to-do families, first of all. And secondly, has got bicultural names. Or most of you have got bicultural names? You have your Chinese names? Yes? You know how your Chinese names? All of you do have bicultural names? I don't have a bicultural name. And I always carry my name as Wing Yan, okay? It's the Chinese name. I don't have an anglicized name as such. But I'm an exception. I mean, I was rebellious in those days in my secondary school, and especially in my college days, in university days, because I was under British colonial rule. And then I was rebellious. I don't want to get an anglicized name. So I kept my name, Wen Yan. And in those days, the professors are all Caucasians from various parts of the world. And it's hard for them to pronounce our names, okay? So I said, it's okay. If you can't remember me, don't call me. If you want to call me Miss Chen. Well, you see, those days we are like that. When we're pretty snobbish in a sense. I mean, I just don't want to adopt an anglicized name, and That's the reason. I mean, especially in my faculty, I was in the faculty of social sciences, and then everybody had got bicultural names. So I'm one of the very few who are not like that. Okay, but that means actually Mark had a bicultural background. Okay, now John, in fact, is Roman name. Sorry. John is a Hebrew name. John is Hebrew. But Marcus is Roman, Latin. This means that he's familiar with Latin, with the Roman culture. Although he was in Jerusalem, and most probably was rich, okay? So is the more well-to-do class, maybe more familiar with different cultures. And then his mother Mary loved the Lord and risked to house a prayer meeting there. Now, you know it's difficult in those days. Although he's well-to-do, her mother was well-to-do, but it's very risky to host a house prayer. That was a time when Christianity was being persecuted, okay? So it's a special time. And then we know another person called Barnabas. Now, Barnabas was being translated as son of encouragement. Okay, actually he was called Joseph, but Barnabas was the nickname. Okay, Barnabas means son of encouragement. It's sort of a nickname. Okay, and then he also was rich, but he sold his field, he sold his possessions, and brought the money and laid it at the apostles' feet. So, and who is this Barnabas? This Joseph? We found that Joseph or Barnabas was actually the cousin of Mark. You see? So, because it's in Colossians that Paul told us that Mark and Barnabas were related. Barnabas was the cousin. And in the Chinese translation, it's not, because in cousin, we don't know who's older, but Barnabas was older. So in the Chinese, he's got an elder cousin, 表哥, okay? 表哥. So obviously the two are related. And so I say his cousin Barnabas was a missionary and a coach, right? Barnabas was an early church missionary being sent by the early church, by Jerusalem to Antioch. And he was a coach. Why? Because he was very nice. He knew when to grab Saul at that time. It was Paul. Paul's former name was Saul. Okay, he was inviting Paul to go down to Antioch with him. At that time, Paul was in Tarsus. So he knew he was he's a good mentor. He knew whom to get and whom to spend time with so that they would blossom and be leaders. So this is an exceptional family background for Mark. So he's pretty lucky in a sense, okay? And that's why in Acts 12, we can see that when Barnabas and Paul went from Antioch to Jerusalem, carrying their donations to Jerusalem, and when they returned and they complete their relief mission, and when they returned to, this is Antioch. I think this is some problem here. Taking along John, who was called Mark, along with him. So they were taking this Mark together with Paul and Barnabas. The three of them went back from Jerusalem to Antioch. Sorry for some mistake here, okay? Now, so he started his missionary journey under Paul and Barnabas. Paul came to Jerusalem and took his cousin along, okay? And then you can see that, so they set off for their journey from Antioch. Paul and his companions set sail. And then they came to a place called, they set sail from Paphos, which is Cyprus, and they came to Perga, which is in Turkey. But John, that is Mark, left them and went back to Jerusalem. So you see that Mark deserted his mission team midway. So this is the first task, or the first phase of Mark. Okay, then I'll just give you some example, a clearer picture. Mark went from Jerusalem to Antioch. From Antioch, they set sail to Cyprus. And then from Cyprus, they went to Perga. And at Perga, Mark deserted the team and went back alone to Jerusalem. So this was the story, the route that he took. So, see, why? Why did he do that? Because I was told many times by my mentors, my teachers in church in those days when I was young, saying that most probably Mark was rich and spoiled. He's a second-generation Christian. I guess most of you are second-generation Christians, right? Most of you. Are you second-generation Christian? Or third or fourth-generation Christians? So he's too protected. And that's why he deserted. Is this the reason? Of course, when I got older and more senior, I'll always question what I learned in the past. So you have to question me later, okay? If you believe in me, later you must question me. You ask, why? Was it really because he was spoiled? He was just scared? He was coward? He was cowardly? Now, I just want to see another side of Mark. Now, dig some more into his background. In the Gospel of Mark, it was told that during Jesus' arrest, there's a certain young man. And this certain young man just wearing nothing but a linen cloth. It's in the middle of the night, okay? He somehow wore a linen cloth, covered his body. And then, because he was so scared, because they want to grab him, and he just left the linen cloth behind and ran away naked. Now, this was funny, actually. But this was the only place in the whole of the Bible recording this incident. Nobody else recorded this. And that's why later, here and in these days, we always believe that most probably Mark was telling you something about himself that nobody knew. It was dark at that time. I think he was always sneaking around, trying to follow people around. He was young, okay? This is a young man. He was young, and he was at a late night, he don't know what to do, and then he heard some hustles, and then he followed around, he eavesdropped. He did all these things. It's something natural, right? I would like to do that too. And as a result, he was almost caught together with Jesus. And that's why he recorded this in his gospel, where nobody else recorded that. Something seems to be not really important, okay, to other people. So I say, most probably, Mark had witnessed the rest of Jesus. And also, in Acts 12, when he departed Jerusalem, he was in Jerusalem when Jesus was crucified. Also, no, not in Acts 12, but also, in Mark, in the day of Jesus' crucifixion. And then, I say, Mark was in Jerusalem when James was martyred and Peter imprisoned. So when I talk about second-generation Christian, you don't think about the second-generation Christian in Bay Area, okay? It's a different story altogether. In those days, being a Christian is very dangerous. So I'm just telling you the perils of Christians today. Now, I am always interested in East Asia, not East Asia, it's South Asia. South Asia, in India and around those areas. I've been to those places quite a number of times. And in these few years, especially in the province of Manipur in India, the Christians face a lot of persecutions. And these are just some recent ones. And the Hindu extremists stormed Catholic Church, and both Catholic and Protestant churches were being persecuted and demand that they be allowed to desecrate the Eucharist. Now, this is something really, to the very humiliating and barbaric, according to the Roman Catholic tradition. You don't desecrate. The Eucharist means the bread and the cup. It's very sacred in the Catholic Church. And you see the people protesting. And you see these young people in the front row. Jesus is the King of Peace. They are protesting. And usually when they protest, they'll put the children and the women in front. You see, this is the way I see a lot of protests in South Asia, including one time in Sri Lanka also. They put the children and the women in front so as to de-escalate the violence. This is something wise. So I'm thinking, these are second-generation Christians, understand me? They are second-generation Christians, and it's very difficult for them. Life is not rosy, not comfortable, not protected, not having a lot of aunties and uncles in church, okay? Not having people to feed you all the time. No. It's not true. And when we see the perils of Christians around the world, here you can see that so many Christians in different countries have their property damaged, they are displaced, they are forced to flee, they cannot publicly display any religious symbols, okay? They suffer religiously motivated physical or verbal attacks. And then they face discriminations in government, education, and the justice system. These are just some of the statistics in the world today. I just want you to open your eyes to the world. And you'll find that in a lot of places, second-generation Christians are not protected. They are at risk. Okay, coming back here to the Bible. I say there are a lot of perils of early church missionaries. Being a missionary is difficult these days, but if you compare to the early church, it's nothing to be compared. This is just an illustration of Paul. He's listing all the things that he suffered. He said he have met much more labors, more imprisonments, beatings to near death, okay? Lashes, rods, stoning, shipwrecked, and dangers from river, from robbers, from my own people, from Gentiles, and dangers in the wilderness at sea, among false brothers, have many sleepless nights, hunger and thirst, often without food, cold, and without clothing. This was what Paul experienced in his lifetime as a missionary. It's something beyond our imagination these days. So I'm just trying to put Mark in his context, that you won't dismiss him too early. You won't just easily brush him aside that, no, he's too weak, he's too cowardly. No. If it were you might not even step out in the first place, okay? Or you might not even be a Christian in the first place because of the difficulties involved. Okay, now it comes to say Mark the San Leandro. He has a makeover. Okay, Mark has a makeover. Now, so later, he rejoined in Acts 15. He rejoined Barnabas, which as a result caused a split in the team. So here it says in Acts 15 that Barnabas wanted to give John another chance, although he had gone back to Jerusalem. Okay, another chance, come. But then as a result, there are a lot of arguments between Barnabas and Paul. And this brotherly team, okay, Barnabas and Paul, this first missionary team, they split. And so Barnabas took Mark with him and sailed off to Cyprus. So here we have, Barnabas and Paul and Mark sailed from Jerusalem to Cyprus. Now, but the next time when we see Mark again, we find that he has served not only Barnabas in Cyprus, he has also served Paul and Peter. Paul asked him to come back. Now, here we see that in Colossians, that was the time when Paul was imprisoned. He said, Mark, Barnabas' cousin, if he comes to you, welcome him. He's introducing Mark to the Colossians. See? Because he becomes sort of an errand. A courier, making courier service or running errands for the imprisoned apostle. Then, in another letter, also towards the end of Paul's life, he said that Mark, my co-workers, one of my co-workers. So Mark was Paul's co-worker afterwards. We don't know when it happened. We don't know. There's no recording from the Bible. But anyhow, we see that they reconciled. And then here, bring Mark with you, for he is useful to me in the ministry. That was in 2 Timothy. We always believe that 2 Timothy, most probably, would be the last letter written by Paul. So he should be in Rome in that time. And Paul needed Mark to help in the ministry. And you see that not only Paul, but Peter. Peter said that she who is in Babylon, she talks about the church. But the church that is in Babylon, that is in Rome, means that Rome is at Babylon. Chosen together with you, sends you greetings, as does Mark, my son. We believe that he wrote that in Rome, okay, when he was also imprisoned. And he said, Mark, my son. And you know that this is the only person Peter called son. Of course, not literally his son by flesh. It is spiritual son. Peter is a spiritual son, that is Mark. So you see the intimate relationship between the two. And so we don't know when, after a few years in Cyprus, Mark went to Rome. And in Rome, he served under Paul and later Peter also, or Peter and Paul, roughly the same time. And now, the most important thing that he had done, he wrote the Gospel of Mark. And most of people would believe that this would be one of the first Gospels written. Among the 4 Gospels, Mark would be the first, the earliest Gospel written. And it was written by Mark, the one who at one time deserted his company, his team, okay? And these pictures are depicting Paul and Peter together, and then Peter coached and taught Mark, and then Mark wrote the Gospel of Mark. And after that, early church history told us that he founded the church in Alexandria. So shortly after the death of Paul and Peter in Rome, Mark went to Alexandria. Okay, he went there and he founded the church. So he was a pioneer at this time. So he founded the Church of Alexandria, and this is one of the sculptures that I can find on Google. He's first bishop of Alexandria. Of course, in those days, it's not called bishop. It was later the church called him the first bishop of Alexandria. And he becomes the first bishop of Alexandria of the Coptic Orthodox Church. So today, the branch in Alexandria is called the Coptic Orthodox Church. And it's currently also suffering a lot of persecution. Okay. And he died a martyr's death. Now, his death was very tragic. This is recorded in Coptic church history, and saying that on April 25th, 68 AD, because of his preaching and his success in finding the church in Alexandria, he was tied in a rope. He was bound in a rope, and then he was the end of the rope was tied to a horse cart, and horse cart just walked around Alexandria, the streets of Alexandria. Can you imagine your flesh being just raw, fresh, scattered, I think, and skin and blood and everything? It's just scattered along the path of Alexandria. So the tradition said that he survived for one day, and the second day they did it again. And then he died during that time. So it was a very slow and painful death. It was a slow and painful death. But in those days, you see, Mark and his mentors. Mark has got at least three mentors: Barnabas, Paul, and Peter. But everybody died a martyr's death. Barnabas was martyred in Cyprus, we don't know when. Then Paul was martyred in Rome, and Peter was also martyred in Rome. Most probably, Peter also suffered a very painful death because he said that he only wanted to be put on a cross, nailed on a cross upside down. Then Mark also was martyred in a very painful, slow death in Alexandria. So my conclusion is, Mark the San Leandro, okay? I say, be a San Leandro is high cost with huge reward. So, do you dare to be a San Leandro? Do you want to be a San Leandro? I hope you would. It's okay. Although, Mark died a very painful death, but this kind of martyrdom is not so common these days. So don't be so worried, okay? Don't look at me with such worryful eyes. These days, it's very seldom that we have this sort of martyrdom. But what I'm saying that no matter what, if you really want to have a heart of a San Leandro, really carry the heart of a San Leandro, you need to be brave. And this bravery will lead you to places where you don't intend to. Will give you mission that you never thought you would be able to bear. But it's okay, it's fine. With God's help, you'll have huge reward. I'm not boasting, but I'm thinking that Mark is now smiling in heaven, right? He has completed the Gospel of Mark. How wonderful. How wonderful. Let's pray. Our Father, we thank you. We thank you so much for giving us all these wonderful examples of early church saints so that it would carry on the torch. Father, I especially pray for ourselves that we are willing to carry on the torch till we see you face to face. I especially pray for our young people here with their lives ahead of them, that they really would love to carry on the mission. There might be failures. It's okay. But they will still go on with your help, they'll see your glory. May you be glorified. Amen.